Missiles negotiations, a market that can't make up its mind, but luckily there's opportunity hiding in plain sight. We will break it all down. Welcome back to Navellier Market Buzz. A really exciting show today. Dad, would you like to introduce our special guest?
Sure. Michael Borgan is a 5-star manager. He's a specialist in small and mid-cap stocks. He's actually a sub-advisor to Navellier's small and mid-cap portfolios. And he works behind the scenes with breakthrough stocks. So that letter was up 62.4% last year. So I'm really excited to have Michael on the show, and he's been kind of one of our secrets.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here on Market Buzz. It's always great to be with both of you.
So before we dive into stocks, I think we have to address the elephant in the room. Trump has put military action on pause until April 6th and says that the Iran talks are going well, but the situation changes by the hour. What are you watching for next?
Well, I think officially he paused his threat to take out the electrical plants. As we're recording now, there's, I guess, some steel facilities got destroyed, and it's unclear whether it was us or Israel, but obviously Israel's continuing to try to thwart the Iranian missile threat because they're flying over Israel. But, you know, he keeps saying the negotiations are going well. 10 oil tankers went through the Strait of Hormuz the other day, so we shall see. And J.D. Vance with Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are all involved in this, and there might be a meeting in Pakistan. We'll see. So we all have hope. And in the meantime, traders like to clean out their inventory when you head into a weekend. I'm happy to see that gold has firmed up here immensely. Obviously, we have all those gold stocks, and then the data center stocks are exhibiting tremendous relative strength as well. So, your oasis as an investor is anything that earns money. So all those stocks will be bouncing and if not exhibiting relative strength.
So speaking of that, Michael, my dad always says that small cap stocks behave like bunnies. They sit and then they hop. Given everything going on right now, what is the liquidity environment telling you about when these bunnies are ready to run?
Crystal, that is a fantastic analogy. I love that analogy because small cap stocks often do behave much like bunnies. You'll often notice periods where they just simply sit with little price movement or trading activity. This inactivity can sometimes strain investor patience, particularly when the broader market is so dynamic. Oftentimes, however, like bunnies, small cap stocks unexpectedly after, say, a catalyst like earnings.
I would also add that Michael's portfolios are extremely diversified, and he always has stocks that try to zig when other stocks zag, and he is an expert in covariance, and that is really the key to getting the volatility down. And so, and of course, when you have good earnings, you just wait for them to come out so the stocks hop.
Now I have to ask about two names that are in your portfolio that get a lot of buzz. D-Wave and IonQ. Are we at a point where quantum computing is truly investable, or are we still in the early innings?
Crystal, that is a great question. And when it comes to quantum computing, I'm very excited, but in a very measured way. Quantum is still early, but the progress is real and it's accelerating. What I like about the names Qubits and IonQ is that they're moving beyond the theory towards commercial relevance. These aren't trades. They're actually for long-term duration ideas, and volatility is part of the process. So in the portfolio, they are a couple of our smaller weights because they are more volatile.
Yeah, and I would add those stocks do have good sales. So as quantum computing unfolds, they will be the leaders. IonQ, of course, packages Qubits, and D-Wave, QBTS, won the Navellier programming contest for quantum computing. And then the third player, which is a little weaker, is Rigetti. They're the encryption experts. But, NVIDIA may win the whole thing because they seem to be controlling it. But at least they have strong sales in the meantime.
Staying on the cutting edge, CRDO technology has been quietly riding the optical computing wave. What keeps you excited about CRDO in this environment?
CRDO basically sits right at the intersection of data center scale, moving data efficiently, and becoming more important as processing it. The optical computing thing here is being driven by one thing. It's big data movement. And that is why one of the reasons why I remain exceedingly optimistic about CRDO. This is another infrastructure where computing is going, not where it's been.
Yeah, and I think the NVIDIA's conference the other week helped them a lot too, because I think they were the strongest optical stock, but Corning and Sienna and Ubiquity also did well.
Digging a little bit deeper into your portfolio, Rocket Lab is another fascinating one. Is space becoming a serious investment theme beyond just the headline names?
When it comes down to space, we are very selective. This is really our only holding in this space. And Rocket Lab is a very different type of space company. They're not just about the launches, they're about building a vertical integrated space platform. That combination of launch capability plus space systems is what's making them compelling right now.
So, Michael, I want to ask you something a little different here. Uranium Energy, that's one of your holdings. With all the talk about small modular reactors and the energy demands for AI, is that your thesis behind Uranium Energy?
It absolutely is. The SMR story is a big part of why we own Uranium Energy. The small modular reactions change the conversation because they are scalable and, to be honest, more politically feasible. This is less about a single year and more about a multi-year energy transition that we're looking at here.
I keep looking at the fission reactors, and the goal with fission is to have this plasma run around that never ends and recreate the sun. It looks kind of like a water slide, it's got all these weird twists and turns with a bunch of magnets on it. And so they're hoping that AI can finally solve fission, because it doesn't usually last for more than 20 seconds. So, but that's probably way off. But boy, if we ever get that going, that would be exciting.
That leads perfectly into your data center holdings, Argan, Primordius, and OGE Energy. With AI driving such a massive infrastructure build-out, how much runway do you see in these names?
We see an incredible amount of runway. And actually, going back to the analogy about bunny stocks, small caps being like bunnies that need a catalyst, Argan actually reported earnings yesterday and absolutely blew out earnings and revenue expectations. And this morning, they are up about 30%. So we are still very much excited about all three holdings. The AI cloud buildout isn't just about chips. It's about physical infrastructure. And these three companies are at the forefront of that, building that infrastructure.
Yeah, and they're going to have a lot of positive analyst revisions under Argan. Obviously, we were ecstatic. But, I was getting calls before the earnings came out because the stock was selling off. So welcome to the small cap world. That's what they do. They sit, they hop, and Argan is lifting the entire data center sector right now. So that's a lot of relative strength today.
Another thing about Argan, in the last 9 months, we've actually trimmed Argan twice because it's grown so much.
Yeah. So, Michael, you're up in Washington State. You live in the heart of Amazon and Microsoft country. What's the mood like on the ground? Are people in these companies excited? Are they believers in all their new projects?
That's a great question. Because you mentioned Microsoft, I do have to mention that my wife does work for Microsoft, for full disclosure. I would say that the mood is very pragmatic, but still optimistic. So, the saying, you could say that they are cautiously optimistic. You don't hear a lot of euphoria. However, their actions really do tell you a lot about what they're doing, and they are continuing to invest heavily in AI and the AI infrastructure. So that tells me that they definitely see a long runway when it comes to that new technology, that burgeoning technology.
So, Michael, I know you've gone way out to Spokane and Eastern Washington. A lot of those data centers are all along the Columbia River Gorge because they got the hydroelectric, cheap electricity, plus it's cold out there. They can vent them at night. Have you seen the data centers getting more massive in that part of the world?
We have. We have absolutely seen the data centers getting larger and larger. And you're absolutely right, Louis. When it comes to those data centers, cooling those data centers is definitely key. And so being out in areas that do have cooler climates is very beneficial for those companies.
And one weird question, I think Eastern Washington was in a 30-year drought, but then you had all those atmospheric rivers. Is the drought concerns over? Because I guess that affects the hydroelectric output on the dams.
That's a great question, and it really depends on who you ask. If you if you listen to the local news, they will more often than not say that we are continue to be in a drought. However, at the University of Washington, there is Cliff Smash, who is a meteorologist, and he basically comes out and says, no, we're out of the drought now.
Good. Yeah, kind of like California. The
Yes.
atmospheric rivers help a lot.
Yes, they do. In fact, during the last one that we just had this past weekend and last week, he frankly said the rain that came and the storm that came was a typical Pineapple Express. It came right from Hawaii. And obviously, I'm sure you and all your subscribers know what's happened to Maui and what's happened to Oahu with all the flooding and whatnot.
Yeah, no, he's been devastated. Yeah, if that just kept going to Washington State, you got a lot of rain. Yeah. And hopefully you have a good salmon run too, and steelhead run. That'll be great.
All right, let's look ahead at some really interesting earnings coming up this week. First up is McCormick. This is a steady name, but with tariffs and input costs still a factor, pricing power and margins are going to be up front and center. Dad, what are you expecting?
It's better. Their sales are supposed to be up 11.4%. Their earnings are supposed to be down 0.9%. And there are minor analyst trims on it. It did miss last quarter by 1.8. So, if they surprise, I take it all back. But they do have very good sales growth, so that's encouraging.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add, when it comes to McCormick, it's amazing how much resilience they're showing. What stands out to me is they're still growing volumes. It's not just pushing price, which tells you that demand for like core brands like Frank's and Old Bay are still holding up. I think the debate right now when it comes to McCormick is margins. Commodity costs, tariffs are all a headwind. So in 2026, it's really about converting the volume strength back into margin recovery.
Next is FactSet Research, a quieter name, but Dad, do the numbers look good?
Yeah, for full disclosure, both me and Michael use FactSet data systems for our research. That's the engine behind StockGrader, just so you know. Their sales are supposed to be up 6%. Their earnings are supposed to be up 2.2%. The analyst community is really, really quiet on this stock, but they did have a 3.5% surprise last quarter. So, it's not exciting enough for me to invest in, but we do like the company's product and do use it religiously. And so if there's going to be more quants out there, FactSet will do good.
And what's interesting for me with FactSet, other than I've been a user of FactSet since 1995, is it's really just a steady subscription-based business. Like you said, Louis, it's nothing sexy, no explosive growth, just kind of a stalwart. One of the things, though, I think that might be a catalyst when it comes to FactSet is that they are really diving heavily into AI, and they're starting to push those models. I don't know if you've seen those emails coming from your FactSet representative, but I know I have.
Yeah, we are experimenting with Claude and StockGrader, and the Claude database goes into all the StockGrader database, and it's interesting. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to tweak it, and you can ask it a lot of interesting questions. So I would be fascinated to see what FactSet's AI enhancements might be.
Moving on to Conagra, a packaged food giant. Dad, what are you watching here?
Well, their sales are supposed to be down 2.8%. Their earnings are supposed to be down 21.6%. Obviously, they're going to be fighting higher prices for grains and things like that. And obviously, the fertilizer shortage probably is going to hurt them. But, this is a very, very boring stock. This would be considered a value stock that neither me or Michael will go near. But with that said, they did surprise the last 2 quarters. If they keep surprising, I'll take it all back.
Yeah, when it comes to Conagra, this is not something that is in our wheelhouse. It's very much a value-oriented staple, and they're dealing with inflation and the tariff headwinds, as you mentioned.
Lamb Weston has had a very rough stretch in the frozen potato category. Dad, what are you forecasting?
Okay, Lamb & Weston sales are supposed to be down 2.3%. Their earnings are supposed to be down 44.3%. There's a minor analyst trims in the last 7 days, but they have surprised for 4 quarters in a row. So this is the frozen French fry king, okay? And where Michael lives, I think he can get French fries that are not frozen, and those are the best. So Utah, Idaho, Washington have better French fries than everybody else. But I don't want to invest in it till I see the earnings growth, and it's just not there right now.
I couldn't agree more, Louis. Right now, with their margins under such pressure, this isn't something that we would be looking to touch either.
Next up is Cal-Maine Foods. With egg prices still elevated, is this one going to be watched closely?
Not really, because egg prices are coming down, so their sales are supposed to fall 4.7%. Their earnings are supposed to decline quite dramatically. Just so you know, 90 days ago, analysts were estimating 258. Now they're estimating 78 cents. So as egg prices come down, there goes Cal-Maine's earnings. But it has a big fat dividend yield. So most people that buy Cal-Maine want the dividend yield. So that's why it gets held in dividend accounts.
Yeah, one of the things with Cal-Maine is the specialty eggs and prepared foods are becoming a larger part of their sales, which is helping fuel that dividend. So the story from our perspective is a little bit less about the spot egg prices and more about how the mix shifts and stabilizes earnings over time.
And then the big one everyone is waiting for, Nike. Tariff headwinds, China exposure, and a brand turnaround story all in the mix. This could be a real market mover. Dad, walk us through it.
Well, sales are supposed to be down 0.4%. Earnings are supposed to be down 48%. But there's hardly any change in analyst estimates, and they have had huge surprises for the last 4 quarters. So as long as they surprise, it might firm up. Obviously, they make a lot of things in Vietnam and all, and those tariffs are settled now. So, we'll see. And then where Michael lives, Oregon always plays Washington, and it's the big game every year. And when the Ducks come into town, of course, the Ducks are backed by the Nike founder. I have hope for Nike, but I'm not going to invest in it until I see their earnings.
We feel the exact same way. With demand in North America stabilizing right now, it really comes down to the tariffs and to discounting. I think it comes down to we have to watch their execution and their inventory discipline over the next several quarters.
Well, perfect. Thank you, Michael, so much. And thank you for allowing us to walk through your wonderful portfolio.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for coming on, Michael.
And as always, thank you all to everyone for watching. Please hit subscribe and drop any questions you have in the comments below. But we will see you this Wednesday for a midweek update.